Please won't you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together find their way into the heart of God this morning. Amen. God does not grow weary, but we sure do, right? Amen. Global pandemic weary is a special kind of weary, right? I talked to so many of you who report that the pandemic has made your life easier, though. Is that true, some of you? No. Not all of you report this to me, but some of you do. People say that it has been easier, to stay home and order groceries and not go to committee meetings at night, right? And doctor's appointments even, like you can do that online, and soccer practices, like for all those tired parents. And it has been easier not to travel to work conferences or to visit your sister-in-law for Christmas. And I have felt the same way sometimes, because life is so much easier without so many humans in it, Humans are so human-y. It's people-y out there, It's better to stay inside. The pandemic has gifted us with this sort of ease that makes me worry that we won't even emerge from our houses wearing real pants once we're given the all clear, Like, I don't even know who's going to give us the all clear. Who is going to be, like Charlie Baker, Fauci, Dr. Fauci, right? And I'm sure it's going to happen one day, right? Like one day it's going to be like end of pandemic day, and we all run out of our houses, like pants on, real pants on. This tendency toward choosing the easy and human-free way, though, worries me, because connection is the only antidote to trauma. Did you know that? Trauma therapists tell us that. Connection is the only antidote to trauma. And we are traumatized. And the reason why I know that is because we are so tired. So, even though some of you report to me that pandemic life is easier, you also say to me, I don't have to leave my house to go to work, but somehow I feel like I'm working harder than ever. I take a nap every day, and I barely have the energy to make dinner for my family or get up off my couch and take a walk, right? I hear this a lot from all of you, too. My life is easier, so I don't understand why I'm so tired. Do you feel this way sometimes? Not all of you do. It's okay. I do sometimes. Because global pandemic weary is a special kind of weary. There's a meme that was shared on Twitter 2 weeks ago that Kate and I both love. You might have seen it. It says this: Pandemic day 25, I made bread. Day 95, I sure do miss my friends. Day 310, the White House seems to be under the control of a shirtless man in a Viking helmet. Day 330, Reddit's coordinated attack on Wall Street is going as planned. What? What we are feeling is exhaustion. We are a nation divided by the politics of outrage, made worse by our physical separation. We have experienced a racial reckoning brought on by the televised murder of a man that horrified us all in June. We have experienced an economic crisis unmatched since the Great Depression. Our kids are still home from school most of the week, spending all day on the screens that just 1 year ago we attempted to limit their use of, right, parents? There are 244 patients boarding in hospital emergency departments across the state of Massachusetts, waiting for beds to materialize in psychiatric inpatient hospitals. Did you know that? It is a crisis of epic proportions. And this month, just a couple weeks ago, right, there was an insurrection at the Capitol and a transfer of power from one president to another. And we have experienced an incomprehensible amount of death. Almost 450,000 100,000 daughters, sons, mothers, fathers, grandparents, nieces, nephews, aunties, and uncles have died from COVID-19 just in this country alone in less than a year. And to top all of that off, there is one morally ambiguous, ethical choice to make after another, amen? Seemingly every day, right? Should I mask up and have one last Christmas with my grandmother this year, or should I stay home to give her a few more months of life in the nursing home? Should I take the vaccine when offered, or give up my shot to someone more deserving? Should I reopen my business to keep my employees in a job, or should I remain closed to keep them healthy? Should I have an in-person or Zoom funeral for my husband? And on and on and on, right? We have choice fatigue. We are so tired. Pandemic weary is a special kind of weary. So in our passage from Isaiah today, the prophet is speaking to the weary ones. He is addressing the Judean people who have long lived in exile in Babylon. They are tired, they are beaten down, they are in the depths of despair. They have lost the imagination, that helps them see a better world. They're too tired to even dream, right? So the prophet begins by reminding the exiles who God is in almost a pleading tone. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? You worship a God who sits above all this mess. God stretched a dome of stars over us like a tent to contain us and make us feel safe. This is a God who made a home for all creatures, even you. This is a God who envelops us in beauty, who creates order out of chaos. Our God created the very foundations of the earth. The people are just like tiny grasshoppers below. And God even brings rulers and kings and princes and presidents and billionaires to nothing, right? Like grass in the wind, the psalmist says. The Holy One created all of this, called it all by name, loved it all into existence. That is the God we worship. And God promises still more. The best is yet to come, Isaiah says. Wait on the Lord. He will give strength to the powerless. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not be faint. We may be exhausted, but God does not grow weary, Isaiah says. God is like my 7-year-old son, Isaac, repeatedly leaping from couch to couch in our living room, day in and day out, despite the fact that he rarely leaves the house. G.K. Chesterton says, because children have abounding vitality, because they are spirit fierce and free, therefore they want things repeated and unchanged. They always say, do it again. And the grown-up person does it again until he is nearly dead. For grown-up people are not strong enough to exult in monotony. It is possible that God says every morning, do it again to the sun, and every evening, do it again to the moon. It may not be automatic necessity that makes all daisies like. It may be that God makes every daisy separately, but has never got tired of making them. It may be that he has the eternal appetite of infancy, for we have sinned and grown old, and our Father is younger than we. We may be too weary to picture the day when we will once again put on real pants and turn our faces to the sun, but God is not tired of us. God will make a way out of no way. All we have to do is wait. And in the meantime, what we are experiencing is emotional exhaustion. The last time I preached this text 3 years ago about what it means to run and not grow weary, I actually asked the marathon runners in this congregation to tell us how to do it. I don't know if any of you were there or remember it. It was 3 years ago. We have a lot of marathon runners in this congregation. God bless them all. I am not one, so I had to ask them, how do you run and not grow weary, right? But today I'm going to share wisdom from neuroscience. All of this comes from a book that I want you to read called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. They're sisters. And if you don't feel like reading it, which I often don't feel like reading, I commend to you Brene Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us, in which she interviews both authors. I don't know about you, but mostly I function as though I am a giant head walking around in the world, right? I'm just a head. Just full of thoughts, nothing, from here down. I believe that rational thought will save me from all suffering. In other words, I am a thinking person who occasionally has a feeling or two. And luckily, I am skilled at successfully tucking those shameful emotions away so that nobody notices them, right? You've never noticed me have an emotion, have you, congregation? No. It turns out, though, that that's not how I'm built at all. We are actually emotional beings who, on occasion, think. When we are exposed to stress, we have the involuntary, evolutionary physical response to fight, flight, or freeze, right? And some of us are more prone to one of those responses than the other ones, but all three responses are morally neutral. They are not a sign of weakness. They are just our body's way of keeping us safe from danger, right? Emotions are grounded in the science of our physiology. They are called feelings because they are experienced in our bodies. We actually feel them. They are our physical response to stress. They are neurological events we can feel that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So emotions are like a tunnel. We have to go through the entire cycle in order to reach the light at the end, right? So in their book, the Nagoski sisters tell us the reason why exhaustion happens is that we get stuck in an emotion. And those emotions pile up. We can't find our way through the tunnel without a loving presence to help us, so we get stuck in the middle of it. We put it aside or we stuff it down, right? But the problem is the emotion doesn't leave our body until we complete the stress cycle. So the unfinished emotions just kind of pile up and exhaust us. We're still stuck in the middle of them. Sometimes we mistakenly believe that if the stressor itself goes away, the emotion should too. However, we actually have to deal with the stressor and the emotion separately because the emotion is the physiological response, right? So we have to actually take care of our body in order to complete the stress cycle. The Nagoskis give an example of a gazelle in the wild. I don't know how much you all know about gazelles, but after surviving an attack from a predator by playing dead, when the predator disappears, the stress cycle isn't complete until the gazelle shudders uncontrollably. Have any of you ever seen this? Maybe on a nature channel or something. The gazelle actually finishes the stress cycle by shuddering the rest of the feeling out of her body. She purges the adrenaline from her body, and then she gets up and gallops off towards safety. Humans are like that too. When we do not complete the cycle, when we do not shudder at the end, our feelings still live inside us. So we have to signal to our bodies that we are safe. And we do this by speaking our body's language, giving it the resources it needs. If we don't, we end up exhausted and burnt out, prone to illness and depression and hopelessness, and the list goes on. You know what this exhaustion feels like. So how do we walk and not grow weary, run and not grow faint, given our emotional exhaustion? Luckily, this is available to us every day. The most efficient ways of completing the stress cycle are available to us right here, right now. So there are 7 that they list. The first one is physical activity in any form at all. So it can be running, it can be walking, it can be just tensing your muscles and then letting them contract. Anything that makes you present in your body and gives it physical release, right? Number 2 is breathing. So breathing and tuning into the breath. So not just we're breathing all the time, but so we have to actually pay attention to our breath. Take slow, long breaths in and out. That's the gentlest way to regulate the nervous system. Breathing makes you well enough even to get through the stressful situation itself in the moment. 3, I love this one, positive social interaction. So capitalizing on the natural inclination that we have to connect with other people makes your body feel safe and at home. Even just saying to someone in the grocery store line, "Hey, I like your earrings," is enough. It helps us to feel as though the world is a safe place again to interact with humans in those everyday, really simple ways. 4, this is maybe the best, laughter. And it's not the kind of laughter that you force, to ease social situations, like, ha 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 ha, when you're like at a party and you're sort of pretending, but the uncontrolled laughter, like the kind that takes over your body, that kind of laughter. 2 summers ago, when I was on Star Island, I stayed up late at night with very funny friends, my husband, and I laughed so hard that I panicked. Do you know that kind of laughter where you've lost total control of your body? And even reminiscing about a time you laughed that hard can help you to complete the stress cycle, they found out through research. Number 5 is affection. And this one is really good. A warm hug that feels like it lasts slightly too long, right, for your comfort, that actually increases oxytocin and has the same effect as jogging for 4 miles on completing the stress cycle. The Nagosky's recommend at least 20 seconds in which both huggers are holding their own center of gravity, so nobody's sort of leaning into the other person. And you have to keep hugging a little past your normal hugging time, right? Until it feels like you have come home to a place of safety. Number 6, a big old cry. Crying doesn't solve your problems, but it helps you get unstuck from the stress cycle. So a good cry doesn't last forever if you attend to the physical separation of the crying itself without feeding it more thoughts about the stressful event that makes you keep going, right? So just having a good cry in which you focus on the feeling of crying. And finally, number 7, creative expression. Carrie Fisher says to take your broken heart and make it into art. Do you remember when she said that? You can complete the stress cycle by taking what's inside of you and putting it on the outside of you. So you can knit booties of rage or write poems of sadness or paint your joy or sing your fears or dance your mourning, right? And I'll just add that I think a steady diet of good news can't hurt. This week, I went to the Rutland Public Library, so did Zach, and we both got vaccinated against COVID-19. Wow. Yeah, well, you don't have to clap for me. Clap for the nurses and all of the EMTs and the people that are helping out in these huge efforts in these small towns. I felt like I was given an injection of faith in a needle. God gives power to the faint. And then I came home, I think in the last 2 days, and I saw Danielle raise pictures of our elders here in Sterling getting shots at the Sterling Senior Center. Barb and Bob Dumont were like right on the front page, getting their shots in their cars. And I just wept and just looked at the pictures. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, right? Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these, he who brings out their host and numbers them, calling them all by name, because our God is great in strength, mighty in power, not one is missing. So, beloved, while you wait for your turn, keep walking, keep breathing, keep loving, keep laughing, keep hugging, keep crying, keep creating. God does not get tired of us. Every morning, God will say, do it again to the sun. And every evening, God will say, do it again to the moon. And our hope is found in God's steadfast love. Let all within us praise his holy name. Amen.